This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Competition starting to get thick, it's the click, so I hope you rock your A game. A man, no rain from the track when we unite and spit. This is an A game, better bring your A game. Competition starting to get thick, it's the click, so I hope you rock your A game. A man, no rain from the track.
Hey now, it's the Mike and JD Show, and I'm your host, Mike Gilbert, and I'm joined this week by a very special guest, friend of the show, multiple-time co-host, the one and only Scott Edwards. Hi, man. How you doing, Scotty?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me back. I always love to jump on here, whether it be with you or JD. So thanks for having me.
You're like the fifth Beatle, man. You're like a Pete Best. Are you familiar with Pete Best?
I am not, but I
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Well, so Pete Best was he was credited on a lot of the Beatles songs as kind of like kind of a studio musician. He would even go on tour with them sometimes. So he helped write a lot of their songs and was like a big part of their act, but he was never like a Beatle. He was just a guy that they hired per album, and they would bring him into the studio all the time. So they always called him the fifth Beatle, man. So you're like you're a big part of the family here on the Mike and JD Show.
He must have got paid like so much money to do nothing.
Yeah, well, no, he would come in and like help write a lot of the songs, and if you guys go on to Disney Plus and watch the documentary of oh god, what was the name of the last Beatles album? I can't remember the exact name of it off the top of my head, but he was actually in on that, so you actually got to see him at work. He's like playing piano on some songs, he's playing guitar on some songs, he's doing all kinds of stuff. He was just like a legit studio. So they got guys that like it's their whole job to go with different bands and just play music in the studio. You can just like hire them to come in and be a part of the deal. Oh, John Muse, yes, thank you, John. Let It Be, the final studio album for the Beatles. So yeah, he was helped writing and composing all those songs. So he was a big part of the Beatles act. They just never really got the credit.
I'll take that role. I don't need any credit. This is Mike JD Show. It doesn't say my name here.
yeah, but we always love having you, man. We always love having you. And so how's it been going in the Scott E world, man? What you got going on these days?
It's weird. So a few weeks ago, I got laid off from my job, but I feel like I'm more busy now than I was then, which is a very weird thing, but I've kept myself busy. I've started to do more work, whether it be in this side of things or just looking for like ways to make money, and kind of enjoying summer at the same time. It when I got laid off, one of my friends said, could be a worse time to get laid off. Like at least it's the summer. I was like, you're not wrong. So I've kind of enjoyed it. It's hot here in Mass, but I've done my best, and we have a lot. Wrestling is very busy now, and I find myself in and out lately, but I think it's because I know like it's tournament season in Japan, so like I'm gonna have to lock in soon. So like let me take a little step back before I eventually lose my mind in a good way. To be fair, I enjoy losing my mind.
Yeah, man, he's you got a lot going on, dude. Japan is in this weird time right now because you have a couple new promotions starting up. You got New Japan right now, which is probably the coldest it's been in a long time. But then you got All Japan and NOAH, who seemingly are catching a little bit of buzz, right?
Yeah.
Then you got the stuff that's going on in the Joshi world with Stardom being broken off, and now Marigold is popping up, and you still got TJPW and Sendai Girls out there that are doing some big things. But man, it's kind of a weird time in Japanese pro wrestling.
Yeah, New Japan being I don't want to be mean and say bad, but New Japan being bad has given opportunity to everyone else in a weird kind of way, to the point where like you're watching NOAH really rise up this year. They've got their stuff together, and I've always enjoyed their product, but they've really got things together. You're watching them really succeed. I think All Japan going with youth has been very smart as well. They went old for a long time because they had to, but I feel like all these companies saw New Japan not going with youth and were like, all right, maybe we should do that before like we're in trouble. I'm not saying New Japan's in trouble. They're still the biggest company in Japan, but
yeah,
I'm not jumping for joy with New Japan these days. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, this year's G1 is probably the least interesting G1. I think that since I'll be honest, I didn't really start becoming a fan of New Japan until like 2016, 2017, even though I actually went to a Tokyo Dome show in like 2006 because I lived there. And but like I didn't know any of the Japanese wrestlers other than the guys that were on WCW, like Yuji Nagata and Tenzan and those guys. But yeah, I went to the New Japan show because Brock Lesnar was in the main event. It was I want to say the main event was Brock versus Masahiro Chono versus Shinsuke Nakamura. I think it was Nakamura for the IWGP title, and Brock Lesnar won. I'm pretty sure that was the match. I think that was the match. I know him and Nakamura wrestled at least once, but you got to forgive me. That was damn near 20 years ago. So I did go to that, and I remember like TNA was there, like the old the old TNA. They had a lot of guys that were on that card, so they were there. But but I didn't really become a big fan. I know when Jarrett got involved and he started promoting Wrestle Kingdom, I still have the copy of it, but I have an old Wrestle Kingdom on my hard drive. I remember watching it live, and it was like from like 2014, 2015, but I still didn't get into it until I want to say the first Okada Omega match. And then after that, I was like pretty hooked. And then I think they signed a deal with Access TV, and believe it or not, I had I was in the Bay Area and I had Comcast, and Access was just one of the featured channels at the time. It no longer has that kind of cachet, but it was a big time back. Well, I don't want to say big time, but it was an important channel to me because they showed New Japan, but they also had like Japanese MMA, and then they also had like Access TV fights. So they're showing a lot of like independent MMA promotions, and MMA was probably my biggest thing. So I would say like 2016, 2017. So I didn't become like a big time fan. So I would say since then, this is probably the least interesting G1 since like 2016 for me.
Yeah, so it's weird for me because I hated the big G1s they've done the past few years with like 4 blocks and like Chase Owens and all these people that aren't good enough to be in the G1 in my brain. But I think the problem with this year is like there's just so little interest. Like overall, like there's no excitement. Like I think for a lot of people, it's like the idea of the G1, it's exciting, and then like you look at the lineup and you're like, yeah, but there's no Okada, there's no Ospreay, so like a lot of those big matches, which if I looked at a G1 lineup, they always had some of the matches, most of the matches you circle. Them being gone's tough, so it's just like you're going into this thinking, okay, how many matches would I walk away from being like, that was incredible, and I think that's a big part of it for me. I've listened to Dave try to talk me into it. I listened to his and the way he talks about things. I'm like, I don't know, it's not working. I'll check out some of it, but
yeah. I have my buddy Justin Nipper who works for NOAH, and so he and I still talk NOAH every now and then, and so I actually was able to watch NOAH over the weekend. Now, obviously, like AJ Styles and Marufuji was like a big selling point, but then I heard that Inamura, which I think they called him Yoichi. I heard Inamura was in the main event, and that was a guy that I've been wanting to be in the main event since I started watching NOAH like a couple of years ago. I missed the peak NOAH. I was not a fan of Japanese wrestling back in like the peak NOAH, like whatever early 2000s. I just wasn't watching back then, but I got into it a couple of years ago, and the production quality is just off the charts. They have a ton of old dudes, but like the old dudes are still really good.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like they're still like NOAH. Yeah. Like Go Shiozaki's like he's like in his 40s. Marufuji is slowed down a lot, but like when he wants to, he can kind of turn up the heat. And then Takashi Sagura and all like just all those cats. They can still go, but then you got Kaito Kiyomiya and a ton of other dudes that are. But Yoshiki Inamura, like that was the guy I was like. I think that he's probably going to be the world champion one day. So whenever he got into the main event, and the way that Noah kind of bounces that GHC around, I was like hoping he would win. Unfortunately, he didn't. But and I kind of dug the Yoichi character, but they got some stuff cooking. So Justin Nipper's keeping me like in the loop on Noah. So I've been more interested in Noah than New Japan lately. And then fucking Joe Lanza, my boss, him talking about All Japan on the flagship got me looking up some All Japan stuff lately, man. So I think it's kind of cool that, hey, look, the top dogs, they're still the kings of Japan, but they've dipped a little bit. I think that's fair to say. And it's like you were just saying, it's really allowed All Japan and Noah to kind of come back up a little bit.
Yeah, it really has. I think Noah has really done it with going with Kaito and like you said, Yoshiki Inamura, who went by Yoichi for like 3 matches and then was like, yeah, I don't want the name anymore, which is pretty funny just to think about. Like
I thought Yoichi was kind of cool. I thought that was kind of a cool name.
I like it too. Anytime the Japanese wrestlers go with the all caps single name, I'm always into it, like randomly. But he was like, yeah, I don't want it anymore. I was like, oh, okay. Well, it was cool for a match. But they gave him the main event of, Nippon Budokan, which is like, that's what I wanted from Noah the past couple of years. Like when I've tuned in, it's like, oh, go with the young guy, go with Kaito. They're doing that. Go with Yoichi, right? They're doing the right thing. So I think you're right. It's like going with these other promotions because New Japan's just not clicking. It's exciting in a way. It like obviously it's not great, but it's kind of like what we see with when WWE's hot, right?
Yeah.
When WWE's hot, everyone else kind of suffers. When New Japan's hot, it feels like a lot of the other Puro companies suffer. And now it's like, okay, we're seeing them come up while New Japan's a little bit down. I mean, like they're never going to reach the New Japan height. That's just not possible. But hey, if you're giving me good wrestling, I don't give a shit. Like that's what I'm here for.
And I think Jake Lee bailing on Noah and going to New Japan is very helpful to Noah.
Yeah.
I felt like he was kind of a drag as the world champion.
Yeah.
I just didn't find him to like his whole character is kind of like a Naito ripoff where he just doesn't care, but he just doesn't have the charisma that Naito has. He's a big guy, and like when he wants to, he can kind of get it a little bit. But for the most part, there's not much interesting about Jake Lee, and I think that the fact that he is a bigger guy in Japan, which kind of sets him apart from a lot of those other dudes. Like he's never going to be a junior heavyweight, right? He was born a heavyweight. So I think that got him some opportunities that maybe he wouldn't have gotten. And now he's in the Bullet Club. And so I'm like, oh man, New Japan, what are you thinking? And hey, Noah, you guys, I think you guys just got a little bit better.
I totally agree. I think Jake Lee's a charisma vacuum, who's not all too good to begin with. The crazy thing about him though is he can be the youngest guy to win the Triple Crown, GHC, and IWGP belt ever. You've seen that past couple of years with like Nagata and Muto and Kojima.
Yeah.
Please don't put Jake Lee in that conversation ever. He does not deserve to be in that conversation.
Well, and Kojima has one leg up on all of them because he also has the MLW championship under his belt. MLW legend. He was I think he might have been the first one.
Doesn't he have it now?
He has it now. Yeah, he has it right now. Yeah.
That's real. I would book Kojima too. Kojima's still good. I like Kojima.